Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel, where it is time once again for No Sleep TEAL, a program dedicated to discussion involving the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguar. Travis Reier, positioned at Party Girl in the Avondale district of Duval on a Thursday afternoon, June the 5th. And I'm glad to be joined by my co host, Mr. Evan Reier. Evan, it's been a little bit, but we got some fun stuff we're going to catch up on. We are live, by the way. If you'd like to jump into the comments or the show chat, you are welcome to do that. But Ev, we're going to do some defining back-to-back games for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025. And then we're going to give our top 5 Jags in June as the calendar shifts to June and we can kind of see the training camps opening out there on the horizon. Felt like that would be a fun little exercise, but there's been a little bit of news involving this football team too of late. Had some OTAs and then also some roster additions.
Yeah, it's that time of year where, you're trying to gear up for camp, trying to make sure the roster is as filled out as possibly can, give guys that we are pretty familiar with the chance, but also maybe some, veteran special teams type guys that you never know. Every single one of those roster spots matters. So I don't mind seeing new blood coming in as they try to, hone the sword, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun as we get closer and closer to the start of camp. Ev, there is this sort of undeniable buzz. And I would say, with the anticipation being that Travis Hunter is going to be a very good NFL player, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all sort of agree on that. Nationally, how that has picked up and the carryover the Jags have gotten since making that deal on draft day and selecting Travis Hunter, number 2 overall. By the way, Deerwood resident, we know now, or future Deerwood resident, Mr. Travis Hunter. Obviously it's all about what he does on the field, but just in terms of relevance in the offseason discussion, that move has put the Jags, it seems like, back in that mix.
Oh yeah, I mean, in terms of off seasons, this is probably the most I've seen the Jags appear on like official NFL media, and stuff. Just because random highlights of Travis Hunter, on the practice field, like the interception that he pulled off the other day or whatever, which was gorgeous. Just seeing that is fun. That seemed, it's cool to have like a guy that's kind of just a magnet for attention because the Jaguars don't get a lot, especially not on an individual level. There was this kind of Travis Hunter made me think about this the other day, but this graphic that was kind of like being shared on Twitter and Instagram said that, is explaining all the teams that haven't won an individual award, like in various categories, like they don't have an MVP or they don't have a defensive player of the year or anything like that. The Jaguars have 0 players ever in the history of the franchise that have ever won defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year, rookie of the year, MVP, comeback player of the year. They have never won a major individual award.
Well, they've got the man of the year, Eric Armstead.
Yes, of course. Yes, excuse me. But in terms of on-field contributions,
right.
No, they've never had an individual player. They've never had a player win one of the major individual awards. So
crazy.
It feels like Travis Hunter could be that guy. It's early. He hasn't even played a regular season down, but something to give us a thought that maybe we have a bona fide star on our hands.
Absolutely. There is a lot of buzz about the outstanding and terrifically talented Travis Hunter. Not a surprise to people like you and I. We watch a lot of college football. I get a kick out of the NFL centric people. It's like they discover, or they think they discover guys once they leave college. But great college player, and the hope certainly that he'll translate that to the NFL level, and the usage of Travis Hunter, something that's going to be very fascinating for Liam Cohen and that Jaguar coaching staff. But first, Ev, before we get into top 5 Jags in June, I wanted to go through and get your thoughts on the defining back-to-back games. We talked about the schedule the last time we got together here on No Sleep Till. Wanted to get a little bit more specific. We did this a year ago in advance of the 2024 season. So with that, the floor is open to you, Evan, and I love to hear your choice for those defining back-to-back games in 2025.
Well, I have a feeling I know which two games you're going to pick, so I've kind of tried to go somewhere a little bit different, and I'm actually going to go with the beginning in November. I'm going to go with the Jaguars Raiders. You know, the trip to Las Vegas, and then also the trip to Houston directly after that.
Okay,
Uh, because the reason why I say
right
that,
there.
yeah, is if this team is as good as this front office has been operating, like, the way that they've, kind of taken to this offseason, then let's say the Jaguars are close to 500 or maybe above it or slightly below it, what have you, through those first 7 games. I think those 2 games, those 2 road trips, if you get through that first half of the season essentially, and you get into that game against the Raiders, that's when you need to go win. Yeah, it's on the road. Yeah, it's technically kind of like a West Coast game, and those are always a little difficult. That's when you need to go in. And then obviously the trip to the Texans is, much bigger challenge. But if you're able to get through those 2 games at 2-0 after that kind of grueling 5-game stretch before it, you're looking at a very serious like chance to win the division at that
Yeah.
point, I think, because those last 8 games are all very winnable. I mean, really, there's not a single game on there that you think the Jaguars are just completely out of it. So yeah, the beginning of the last 10 games, the trip to the Raiders, trip to the Texans. I think if you win those 2 games, that's the kind of momentum building 2 weeks that could allow you to really make a run in the last half of the season.
Yeah, either way, if you're 2-5 coming out of those first 7, coming back from London and a bye week, it definitely takes on increased importance. And even if you're 3-4 or 4-3,
Yeah,
this is where you need sustained momentum. The Texans are going to be huge because that's the return game for the Jags, who will see the Texans very early in the season. So if you drop a home game to the Texans
yeah,
early on, then you absolutely have to go make up. You need a replacement grade in all likelihood when you make that trip to Houston. So I like the choices there because, as we talked about when the schedule came out, it's absolutely grueling these first 7 games or so. But you're right. I think you're right in kind of sensing where I was headed with this. I'm going right to the top of the schedule.
yeah,
I'm going Carolina and I'm going at Cincinnati. And I understand neither one of those are division games, but they are tone setters. As we talked about when the schedule was released, I think the Carolina Panthers opener is as big a opener, maybe as big a game in the regular season as the Jacksonville Jaguars have had in a long time. New regime, Travis Hunter's debut at Everbank Stadium, Trevor Lawrence healthy, Brian Thomas Jr. ready to vault into that second season. You're going to feel better about where you're sort of headed defensively, if nothing else, based on the pieces being more in the places you would like them to be under the new regime on the defensive side of the ball. And with all that said, Carolina cannot come into Jacksonville with Bryce Young
and
in
win.
year 2 under David Canales, because then also, if that happens, you know what you could sort of revert to? If Carolina comes in with Bryce Young and beats you in your season opener, then people start thinking, well, maybe it was more Canales in Tampa Bay and
Yeah,
what he left to Liam Cohen than
yeah,
it was Liam. You know what I'm saying? That
yeah, for
this
sure.
this is the type of situation where negative Nellies can really feast if you don't take care of business in week 1.
Well, I mean, I think about in terms of recent seasons that kind of went in completely different directions based on win or loss in week 1 last year. Obviously, I mean, they never recovered after blowing that game from the Dolphins. That became the norm
Oh
for the rest of the
gosh.
year. So if you lose that game, especially if you lose like a tight one or something like that, like, I mean, you can't get blown out either. No matter, it doesn't matter actually. Any type of loss in that game, you're already
Yeah.
somewhat deflated for the rest of the year. But then simultaneously, like the year that in 2017, when the Jags beat the Texans bad, like they whooped them at home in the first week of that season,
Yep.
everybody was like, oh, okay, this team's might be serious, like they might be good. So if you go, yeah, like if you beat the Panthers, you beat them really like the way you should, let's say 2 scores probably, then you enter that game against the Bengals and that following game against the Texans with a real thought of, yeah, we can go beat these teams. It really matters a lot. Like that momentum is something that a lot of times people like to write off because these are pro athletes. They go out there and they get their job done and all that different stuff. It matters just as much in the NFL as it does in pretty much any other sport.
Yeah, the arrival of Travis Hunter is going to reinflate this fan base all the way up until September the 7th.
Right.
And then it's going to
And from
be,
there, it's on the Jags.
what do we really got? And if you beat Carolina and then you go to Cincinnati the next week and maybe you don't get the job done against Joe Burrow and those receivers and that offense, okay. And you lose maybe a 4 or 7 point type of game, fan base is still with you. There's
Yeah.
still some belief, but man, if you drop the Panthers game and then go to Cincinnati and you're 0-2, and now you're coming back home to the Houston Texans. And then, Carolina is so big for a number of reasons, because if you don't beat Carolina, where's the first win really coming from at
Yeah.
that
Your
point?
next three
You're going to get
weeks.
it in Cincinnati. You're going to beat the Texans at home. You're going to go out to San Francisco and beat the 49ers in week 4. Oh, by the way, the Chiefs visit you the next Monday night in week 5. I guess Seattle is what you would be looking at from this
Yeah.
7-game stretch that you talked about earlier. The Rams in London, that's certainly not going to be a gimme, a chippy.
That's it.
Just in
Yeah.
terms of the games that the Jags might be favored in, Evan,
Yeah.
it gets a little thin.
No, I mean, and on the other side of 0-2, if you go 2-0, you can kind of f around a little bit. It's
Yeah.
okay. If you drop 2 out of 3 to the Texans, the 49ers, and the Chiefs, you'll live with 3-3 through that stretch, or uh, so it's or 3-2, excuse me. But yeah, so it is critical. I mean, really, it's also kind of like you said, in terms of the fan base, really either getting behind Liam Cohen or not. I think it's really hinging on that, because this isn't a guy like Doug Peterson or some of the other previous hires where it's like, okay, well, this guy's track record is such that we can kind of give him time.
You don't know.
Yeah,
You
with
have
Liam
no
Cohen,
clue with this guy.
this is brand new for him, so
Yep.
you want to see him get off on the right foot.
Absolutely. I think just from a morale perspective and tangibly what needs to happen for this franchise, it's big, 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 big in week 1. And I understand these aren't division games, but they could be great indicators about what's to come from a divisional perspective as well. So, Ev, there you go, defining back-to-back games for both of us for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025. Let's get into top 5 Jags as we've moved into the month of noon. Have you been influenced any by what you've heard coming out of OTAs, or does that kind of shape maybe what you're thinking with this sort of list when you talk about the top 5 players? Or are you thinking more about bigger sample size, bigger track record that we have to work with some veterans and newcomers alike?
So I wanted to double check with you. When you say top 5 Jags in June, we're talking about the entire roster, the top 5 players on the roster, or
Yes,
yes?
your top
Okay.
5, and we're going to go from 5 to 1 is what I would like to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's too early in this off season to necessarily say that anyone's really moving a whole lot um,
Right.
on the roster. I think for the most part it's pretty locked in. But I mean, yeah, I'll go and spoil it. Jack Kaiser, number 1. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Straight to the
yes,
top.
yeah. No,
Spoiler alert. Well, it's not. I mean, I think most people anticipated him being number 1 on your list, so it's not really a
it's not a
spoiler.
surprise. I'm
Yeah,
very
kind of
predictable.
a kick in.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily been a whole lot that has made me, kind of shift up and down since we kind of mentioned this topic a little while ago. But at the same time, it's there the only guy on this list that's a rookie. Surprise! Yeah, I think we all know who we're gonna. You know what? I'll go ahead and say it. Number 5, Travis Hunter. I can't put him
Okay.
any higher than that because again, it's still unproven. But every single thing we've seen, both in terms of energy, both in terms of the highlights on the field, makes me say, yeah, Travis Hunter should already be a part of this list until he gives us a reason to say otherwise. I
He
mean, he
he
looks exciting.
he's a top 5 guy for me already too. But my 5th guy, I'm going Trevor Lawrence
All
at
right.
number 5. I think some folks Boy, it is a polarizing topic here in Duval County when you mention Trevor Lawrence at this point. Now, the sense I get is there's still a vast majority of the fan base that if you even approach negativity as it relates to Trevor Lawrence, you will get flogged by the masses.
Yeah.
There's so from a fan base perspective, I think Trevor's still in a good place with a lot of the vocal public
Oh yeah.
comments that you hear about Trevor Lawrence. I've got him at number 5. Um, Again, it's been a little bit of everything to this point. The last couple of years, it's been too much in the injury department. That being said, have we seen enough from him when he's healthy to sort of justify his number right now? No, we haven't. I mean, really, what we've seen was a hellacious second half
Yeah.
against the San Diego or the Los Angeles Chargers in a playoff game. And that was followed by a pretty horrific first half. So that game is kind of a microcosm, I think, for what we've seen. And as I said, there's things he hasn't been able to control, most notably his health. But I think in some instances, you could make a case that even there he could control that a little bit better in terms of what he's been subjected to. He's obviously had a wide mix of coordinators and head coaches. You could look at that as something that hasn't been within his control. Some people might say, well, it is within his control. If he had been better, maybe he wouldn't have gone through these coordinators and these head coaches. So I'm going with Trevor. I feel like it's a pretty safe move at 5. Again, his supporters will whack you for having him even that low in this town, but based on what we've seen, especially the last couple of years, that just feels kind of right to me.
I think that's fair. And I mean, really, I'm not far off because I'll go ahead and say that I have Trevor at my number 4 spot.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Don't get it twisted. He's, extremely talented. We know what he can bring to the table. And, there's definitely positives. I will say he looks physically better than he has in recent years. He
He
does look,
puts in the work, man.
yeah,
I don't doubt that with him
yeah.
at all. You know,
When he started showing up at OTAs, I felt like I was noticing a little bit more muscle, which
mm-hmm.
is great to see. It's also something that I noticed with Josh Hines Allen. People did a side by side photo from last year when he showed up to OTAs, and he looks considerably better as well. Yeah, I think you can't put Trevor any higher though, just because he hasn't given us a reason to. I mean,
Now, is it a good thing or a bad thing to have Trevor at 4-5 on this list? Is it, a negative in terms of maybe how he has developed and come along at this point in his career? Or do you look at it from a positive perspective that, hey, look, this team does have some guys? I mean, if they were devoid of talent, Trevor would almost be number 1 or 2 by default, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, it's there's that, but you could also kind of put a different lens on it, and you could say, well, when you drafted Trevor Lawrence
He was
4 years
supposed
ago,
to be number 1 slam
there
dunk.
there wasn't supposed to be a
Yeah,
conversation about it. This was
right.
supposed to be
You're
the
right.
guy.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that there's enough talent on the roster right now that we can have a conversation about it and potentially rank guys above him. But simultaneously, when you think about the context of how he joined this team, it's
And
also a
what you're
little
paying him
bit.
now, and you gave him the
Yeah,
extension and the second bag.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
So, I mean, he better. I mean, hopefully, if we were to, start this conversation over again, maybe midway through the season, hopefully he's at 2 or 1. That's where he kind of needs to be.
mm-hmm.
But for right now, when we're just going off of what we've seen to this point, I personally have 2 or 3 guys above him. So
Boy, speaking of number 1 overall picks, I've got another one at my 4th spot. I've got Trayvon Walker. And I
that's
think we saw some
yeah,
really encouraging things from him a year ago. I think you could make a case to me for Trayvon Walker anywhere from 1 to 4 on this list.
I
I don't
agree.
know about you, but I've got him 4, and I sort of I battled that a little bit because I've in some different sort of editions of this list before I edited it a couple of times. I had him higher than 4, but that's where I settled with him.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. He's I will say that Trayvon actually does not make my list. I would probably either have him
Honorable
tied.
mention.
yeah, it's like tied for the 5 spot kind of situation. Like him and Travis Hunter to me,
Yeah.
it's the proven guy versus the unproven guy. But no, that's the thing is like Trayvon's been consistently producing for the past 2 years. Yes, there are days that it kind of seems like he's a little anonymous, more so than we'd like. But overall, you can't really argue with double digit sacks in back to back
Yeah.
seasons. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the kind of base level production you need from a top end defensive
And a strong, powerful dude that can also get it done against the run
could,
game.
yeah, just be an all around great defensive end going forward.
So, what about number 3, Ev? We know that you've made a couple of choices here. So, where are you going with the 3 spot?
So not, if I am not counting health as like a part of this whole, situation. I'm more just in pure skill, talent, importance when they're on the field. I'm actually going to go with the Loicon. I'm going to go with the
Oh,
Loicon at
okay.
number 3. Yeah, I really think he's more important than a lot of the fan base gives him credit for. I think everyone likes him and appreciates him, and but in terms of just having a guy that can run a defense from the linebacker spot, it's so critical, and it was notably worse when he wasn't able to get on the field last year. I mean, just having that kind of consistent,
I never got flipping him and Devin Lloyd last year. I mean, there
yeah,
were some things defensively I didn't get at all.
and I
Uh,
think I think
and that
getting back,
that was maybe at the top of my list. I know a lot of people talked about pass rush personnel and getting guys on the field together, but Aloakun playing weak side instead of
yeah,
Mike,
yeah,
that
it didn't make
that
sense.
that really didn't make sense to me.
Well, generally when you think weak side, you think about a guy like Devin Lloyd, who's just
Right.
athletic, so fast, and so like just able to pursue in a
Off
way
the
that
ball.
no
Yeah.
one else is able to do. But hopefully we kind of get back to some sense of normalcy this year. I'm very curious to see how the staff decides to kind of operate the linebacker group. But I think when he's healthy and he's in a role that he's supposed to be in, Aloakun is a top 5 player, if not top 3 player on this team.
Yeah, I like Way too. I'm gonna go with it number 3. I'm going Josh Hines Allen.
Oh yeah,
So I'm going ahead and getting a couple of my edge guys on the list. Um, it's been up and down at times for Josh. I think he kind of fell into the same thing defensively a year ago. I think in a lot of ways for him, he's going to be positioned exactly the way he needs to be in
hmm
2025. I think that is a real positive for him and the Jaguars in more ways than one. I think it also kind of puts him more under the microscope. Last
yeah,
year you sort of had a situation where guys like Eric Armstead out of position a lot, Josh Hines Allen probably not on the field in the right personnel groupings in certain situations. I think all those things are going away in 2025. And guys like Trayvon, guys like Josh Hines Allen are going to be put in the optimum positions to produce. And when
yeah.
that's the case, then it's, as you know, obviously it's entirely up to the player.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, with Josh, there's no excuse, this upcoming season, or at least there's no excuse entering the season. You never know what could potentially happen. But with, a general like a group that is officially healthy out the gate, you've got decent guys that can rotate in there, but Josh shouldn't be getting rotated out as much as he did last year. I could understand some people making the argument, well, his stats would have been better if he wasn't getting taken off the field all the time. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I definitely see that, but even in that situation, Trayvon Walker hit 10 sacks, Josh didn't.
Right.
So no, we need to see something closer to 2023. We need to see probably 12 to 14 or more sacks at the bare minimum, really. So, yeah, I completely agree. And Josh is at my 2 spot. You've got him at
So there
3.
you go.
I've got him at 2. I mean, he really is kind of the linchpin of that pass rush. And when he's hungry, he's able to
Mm-hmm.
completely wreck a game. I mean, we've seen it. He likes a multi-sack game. I think the Jags are going to need him to do that maybe 4 or 5 times this year.
Yeah, I think 2025 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be put up or shut up for a lot of guys
Yeah.
because there were legitimate problems that led to or could have led to some of the slippage we saw from some guys on that side of the ball. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. And even as you alluded to in making that comparison between what Walker was able to do in terms of sack totals, Trayvon still got to double digits. So, that's got to be where it starts for those guys in 2025. My number 2, I'm going with the rookie, man. I'm going T Hunt. Travis Hunter for me in that number 2 spot. Again, we talked about this earlier. We'd already seen this guy. We knew he was a special talent. I think as much as anything, his health is tethered to the season sort of expectations for the Jags. If he stays healthy, that's my biggest concern for him. I'm not worried about it. I know there was some crap about, man, he doesn't run good routes, blah, blah, whatever. Didn't we hear that about Brian Thomas Jr. a year ago at this time? I'm not worried about anything like that. I'm worried about his health. Can he stay healthy? What's that usage going to look like between offense and defense? I totally get it. I would try to play him on both sides too if I was this Jaguar staff. But maybe even as much as Trevor Lawrence's health being tied to this team and its potential for success during the upcoming season, I feel that way about Travis Hunter, and I got him at number 2. And I just think he's going to be able to impact things, especially working opposite of Brian Thomas Jr. in that passing game. De'Ami Brown, I'm hearing some really great things about coming in from the free agent market. So dynamic. You want to help Trevor Lawrence? Sounds like the Jags did it. And I think Travis Hunter's very much near the top of that list, if not at the top. What about your number 1, F? Who do you got?
Travis Hunter. Or wow, jeez. I was trying to respond.
I moved him up.
Yeah, no. You know what? You sold me.
Pass.
No, my number 1's BTJ. BTJ's got to be the number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, just after the most electrifying rookie season, I think I've probably seen in my lifetime. I mean, I know there's some contenders out there, but generally the Jags don't have like great success with rookies being, like Pro Bowl or potentially all pro caliber players. BTJ was that guy. He was, in a team that was kind of falling apart. He was the only guy that every single time he was on the field, you thought something special might happen.
Right.
And there's no reason to think that will stop. I mean, really, it was just the ideal rookie season. Hopefully, over the course of this offseason, he's just been getting better, working with Trevor and just continuing to raise that ceiling. And, while he's doing that on his own, you also have to think again, like, we're talking about how awesome Travis Hunter is. We're talking about how enticing De'Ami Brown has looked. There's reasons to think that he's going to be able to get open consistently even more than he did last year. If you've got other weapons that are causing issues, then over the top to BTJ ought to be an option all season long. So
you're going to go to Cincinnati and you're going to take on the Texans with what they have at wide receiver and feel like you're not going to a shootout with a knife, right?
Yeah,
you're going to feel like, hey, they got Jamar Chase, they got T Higgins. We feel like with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter and De'Ami Brown, perhaps, we got some guys too, that can make a lot of plays for our quarterback.
No, 100%. I mean, in terms of offensive weapons, we kind of fell in love with the group last year before the season started, and that obviously didn't work out super well. But with this year, I mean, it's hard not to do it all over again, just because again, Travis.
I'm not doing it.
You're not doing it
again.
That's why I said it's hard.
I'm going to be Missouri on this one this year. The Show Me State. I'm going to have to see it in the first couple of weeks before they have any chance to set the hook on me.
No, I feel you. But no, I mean, there's still, plenty of reason for optimism. And really, if you don't have Brian Thomas Jr. kind of leading the way on that, then this group looks a lot less, especially a lot less certain. Brian Thomas Jr. is really the only, surefire kind of weapon that we have on the team as things stand. So, I mean, he is in terms of the offense right now, I think the most important piece and arguably the most important piece on the roster.
Before we get out of here, let's get into some maybe honorable mentions for our top 5 Jags in June. I think you hit on some of that earlier with Trayvon Walker, but some guys we didn't mention Tyson Campbell.
Yeah, I think Tyson Campbell.
That's interesting. What about the Travis Etienne situation here in the last few days?
I
I'm starting to get a feel, I think, for Liam Cohen. And the
yeah,
more assertive and enthusiastic he is about certain situations, the more inclined I'm to feel like he's not as
yeah,
enthusiastic
yeah.
about
He's
that. I
yeah.
mean, what would really be Liam Cohen's motivation if he's asked about Travis Etienne to sort of, well, we just don't
You
think
know,
he's going to
he's
work.
got to work harder. No, I mean, yeah, there's no, you can't do that, especially as a first year coach. You know, you can't
And
like,
in terms of if you are trying to move ETN to value, I mean,
yeah, of
you
course,
got to
yeah,
keep the value as high as you possibly can. And maybe Travis Etienne will rush for 1,500 yards this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just haven't gotten the sense, and especially with what the Jags did in the draft, I know they didn't go back. They didn't go back at 5 like a lot of people thought they would do. They still took 2 backs, and
yeah.
Bashul Tootin, who you worry about
It's
the ball security, kind of
but
like
he's
you worry
very,
about Tank with that.
yeah, but he's very exciting. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
what Bashal Tutin could potentially do is really exciting, and if they can, get him and Tank, if you can just do a two birds one stone situation there in terms of holding on to the football, that would be great. But yeah, I mean, I don't think ETN really. I wouldn't consider him an honorable mention. Who I will consider an honorable mention because I think he's also going to be critical in everything we've seen from him in his NFL career has said that he's a really great player is Patrick McCarry. I
I
think
was going to ask you about Hainsey and McCarry.
I
Yeah.
think McCarry specifically,
Yeah.
Hainsey's definitely like not a bad piece to
Well, they
have
got
right now.
more invested in McCarry for sure, right?
But McCarry, when you watch the Ravens or at any point in McCarry's career when you've watched him play, he is notably
Yeah.
like a really really good offensive lineman. So, that's a guy that I think is in the conversation for top 5 for sure.
Neither
Um,
of the tackles are
no,
in this
no,
conversation,
they're not in
which
there.
is a
Um,
little concerning.
yeah, yeah, it is. But I mean, they have to. It's not. It's still a talk about what can be with Walker Little and Anton Harrison. This is kind of their final year to show that. So you hope that in a kind of prove it year, they're able to do that. But until further notice, I wouldn't be able to really have them in the conversation for top 5. Who I think could be in the conversation for top 5 by midpoint of the season is Ventrell Miller. He's not there yet for sure, but it's not necessarily an impossibility that he enters that conversation by some point in this season.
Yeah, and I had Foye Aluakin in my
Honorable mention list.
yeah, my honorable mention list. I know you had him as a top 5 guy, which I get that. I had him
Logan
more as an
Cook.
honorable mention guy. Is Tyson Campbell, is he kind of the Trevor of the defense
Yeah,
in
for
that
sure.
you've seen some of it from Tyson Campbell, but then the injuries, especially the last 2 years, he got the bag, the second bag, kind of like Trevor did. To me, he's sort of his career, obviously different position, those things. But just as far as what we've seen in terms of positives, what we've seen in not so positive, and then the injuries, that's kind of the guy he is for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love Tyson Campbell. I've really like when he's playing at his best. It has been so much fun to watch him in a Jaguars uniform. He's got just a general uh, I mean, really a plethora of skills. He's good
Yeah.
at just about everything, but we need to see him put it all together this year and stay healthy. And it's just concerning because you're paying him a lot of money. And really, I don't know how much longer you can kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. I think kind of
Kind
like,
of the same thing you're asking about Trevor.
yeah, like this is kind of a big year for him, and hopefully he's feeling motivated in that sense. But also, when you've kind of you got a new staff, you got some new additions that are exciting to the team. Hopefully, just about every single guy on that roster, all the core pieces are feeling more excited about playing on this team next year.
And
Uh,
of course, this list doesn't include specialists because if it did, the
yeah,
Jaguars punter and snapper would have to be top 5 Jags,
yeah,
wouldn't they?
Matt Sick, Logan Cook, they're definitely one,
Pro
two,
Bowlers.
and then
I mean,
probably
they're the
you're
Pro
probably putting
Bowlers on
Cam
this
Little at
roster.
5. You're probably putting Cam Little at 5 or 6.
Cam
It's
Little, yeah. After last season, he'd be a top 5 guy, probably.
I mean, it's if we're going off how well do you do your job? Like, I mean,
You
they are
mentioned McCarry. What about Eric Murray coming in
I
and
I
at the
I
safety position? And they it's not huge money, but 12 million guaranteed is
Is
kind of a statement about what they are going to expect from him.
absolutely. I mean, it's really with Eric Murray. What you're hoping, I think, is that he is the like I don't know. You just need a strong veteran. I don't think
Yeah,
you're asking him to be a top 5 guy or even a top 10 guy necessarily. You just want him to be in the top 15. You want him to not make mistakes. You just want him to show up, do well, and go home. Because don't get it twisted, he's definitely had a really solid NFL career. I mean, we're talking about his 10th NFL season this year. But he's got only 3 career interceptions. He didn't crack 10 passes defended or more until last year. So maybe
yeah.
you're catching him at the best point of his career. But
Maybe
yeah, I mean,
system fit. He's going to
yeah,
be just what they want. Those type
yeah,
of
exactly.
things. Yeah,
So I think Eric Murray is definitely I love the addition. I think it makes a lot of sense for what this team needs. But I don't think that unless he kind of has like one of those like breakout years, like that you just aren't really expecting from a veteran, I don't think he's really in the conversation. However, I do think Jordan Lewis is. I
yeah.
actually think I think Jordan Lewis. I as someone who covered the Cowboys for a few years, I watched a lot of Jordan Lewis. Jordan Lewis is awesome. I like that
Feels
dude.
like the slam dunk guy at the slot corner, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean
that's why you
that
brought
is
him in, right?
yeah, and between with him, like I definitely think he's also the type of guy. He's very like loud presence, like very active in the locker room. Definitely has a lot to say.
Yeah.
I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think this is a guy that could potentially teach Darian Jones a thing or two. So I think yeah, Jordan Lewis is absolutely in that conversation for. He's definitely I would say top 10 for me, and he might be like 7. He
Yeah,
might
we cut this pretty tight with 5,
yeah,
you know.
it's tough.
Yeah. Gave us
But
a good list of honorable mentions though that we were able
yeah,
to
for sure.
work through here as we wind down on the latest edition of No Sleep Till here on the Reier on YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel as of yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. That way you'll be alerted to when content drops here on the channel. Also, a thumbs up, a like would help Evan and myself out tremendously as well. Well, Ev, I enjoyed this one, man. Good catching
Yeah,
up first and foremost, but we got topical. We didn't get
yeah.
tropical, but we did get topical.
Who says there's nothing to talk about NFL wise in June? There's plenty to chat about. But no, it was good, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, looking forward to catching up with you and the ham this
Yeah, that
weekend.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be welcoming the parents to Birmingham this weekend. Gonna show them some of the other spots I haven't gotten to show them yet. So very excited. Hopefully the weather kind of permits us. It's supposed to get a little.
It's storming down here in Duval right now.
It's still
It's Jackson June.
Jacksonville.
That's what I
Yeah,
call it.
yeah,
Jackson June. That's what it
yeah.
is.
You
You know?
can't escape it.
Yeah, ain't no ham like Birmingham. Looking
Facts.
forward to it
Oh
this
yeah.
weekend. All right, Ev. Talk to you real soon.
Sounds good.
For Evan, I'm Travis. Thanks again for joining us right here on No Sleep Till. Until next time, so long, everybody.